on, do you?
No, George, as I understand it, is an editor of a newspaper. I'm not proposing to edit any one of the more than 200 titles in Johnston Press. I'm going to be proposed for the board, and then in time, if things go our way, according to the shareholders, because it's up to them, then to be chair of the company. That's very different from being an editor of a newspaper.
Right, a lot of people have been suggesting that if you win control of the Scotsman, you're going to turn it into the House Journal of the SNP.
Well, stuff and nonsense. I mean, anybody who knows anything about me, which obviously excludes the current editor of the Scotsman, who incidentally I've never met. This is something I haven't been able to say for 35 years. I've met all of his predecessors over that period of time. It said that, and I can't understand why, because anybody who actually knows me knows that I don't think that quality newspapers should back individual political parties. They should champion causes and ideas, of course, but not individual political parties. But in any case, the editorial policy of any one of the more than 200 titles in Johnston Press, if we are successful, if the shareholders back us, will be determined by the editor of each title.
You've just mentioned Frank O'Donnell, the current editor of the Scotsman. Here's what he's had to say about you. He said, if I was looking for a top-class after-dinner speaker, I would definitely give Alex Salmond a call. But the man to help steer newspapers through their most turbulent times in 200 years, perhaps not. I mean, what makes you a good newspaper man?
Well, I mean, as I say, I've never met Mr O'Donnell. I've met many of his predecessors. I mean, the greatest Scotsman editor in history, Alistair Dunnett, was one of my bosom friends and my mentor. I don't know if Mr O'Donnell's ever heard me in an after-dinner speech. It sounds like he has and was impressed. But, you know, I'd just probably say, you know, look, if you can run a country, as I have, then you can probably run a company.
But it's a fair bet, though, that if you do become chairman of Johnston Press, Mr O'Donnell ought to be dusting off his CV.
Well, I'm not really interested in that either. I'm not actually that interested. I mean, look, the people who have to be replaced in Johnston Press are the top executives who've laid this company low. I mean, this is a company which has cleaned out 90% of its shareholder value, which has cleaned out, well, to take the Scotsman publications, 2/3 of its journalists have been cleared out since Johnston Press took it over. This is a company which effectively, and I think this is probably unique in company history, paid more to its financial advisors, Rothschilds, than the entire share value of the company. These things are unheard of, and therefore the leading executives, the chairperson, the chief executive who did this, in our view, shouldn't be in charge of the company. And the question will be, do the shareholders agree with us? If the shareholders back us, then Johnston Press will be taken in a new, exciting and positive direction. But if they don't, then the current senior management will continue in their disastrous course of policy.
So, serious question. I mean, the Scotsman now sells less copies than the Scottish edition of the Times does every day. How will you make the Scotsman relevant once again?
Well, which is why there has to be a change. But this is not about the Scotsman. Can I just underline this point? There are more than 200 titles in Johnston Press. You know, everything from the Stornoway Gazette to the Eastbourne Herald. The flagship titles are, of course, the Yorkshire Post, the Scotsman and the Eye. And these are titles which should be the flagships, but all of the local papers should be local champions in their communities. Now, you rightly say the Scotsman circulation has plummeted under the current leadership of the company, and their current upswing that they claim is because they're giving out free copies at Edinburgh Airport. Now, we want people to look at the Scotsman and see content that they want to purchase either in the printed edition or online. And what's interesting about Christian Agel-Hansen, he's demonstrated a model through the papers in Scandinavia, through the Metro in Scandinavia, where you can exchange effectively subscriptions for content, building up the trust of your readership. So although it's gone through incredibly poor times, incredibly disastrous policies, Johnston Press is a very exciting titles in the sense that they are all, including the Scotsman, local champions in their communities. I want the Yorkshire Post to be pro-Yorkshire, I want the Scotsman to be pro-Scotland, and I want the Eye newspaper to be pro-information.
Very quick final thought from you. Another great Scottish title tonight. The Herald has parted company with its editor. I mean, these are pretty desperate times for newspaper journalism in Scotland, aren't they?
Well, they are indeed, and not just that. Of course, the Evening Times editor, as I understand it, has gone the same way. All the more reason for a radical change in direction. We want to see a build-up of vibrant journalism across Johnston Press, but in its Scottish titles as well. And let's develop that concept of local champions and bring it into the 21st century in the digital age.
All right. We will make America great again.